see the hoodie? See the clear blue sky? So why am I wearing the hoodie? Because we're talking about defense wins championships. This is now part 3. I'm trying to give that defensive look. I'm trying to give that tough look. I'm trying to give that Bill Belichick, one of the greatest defensive minds look. And I actually have, again, I'm near the mud here to give that tough through the mud type of football game where defense is ranked supreme. And defense is, this is very speculative here. We're trying to do it a little bit in a studious way, but speculative that defense wins championships. We really need your help on this one. We need you to comment and say, you forgot about this team, you forgot about that team. How could you prove that from that? What about this team? What about that team? We need your comments here because this is an ongoing one of those, the more information we have, we can make it more studious and less speculative. I went a little faster on Super Bowls 1 through 25 in our first 2 parts. I did try to bring as many details. I talked about the Packers being a defensive team in the beginning, the Steelers and their steel curtain winning through dominant defense 4 Super Bowls in the 70s, the doomsday defense of the Cowboys, the no-name defense of the Dolphins. Even the purple people eaters of the Vikings didn't win a Super Bowl, but they did indeed always make the playoffs. A lot of tough defense. Now, that era was an era where they didn't fling the ball around unless you were in the AFL. So it could be that it's, of course, defense won, then that's what teams focused on. I'm trying to show that even when we're going to be showing as we get to the more modern era, even as the rules favored offense and teams went more offense, and there are always going to be more offensive teams. Teams want to sell tickets. So there seems to be more teams that have a quality offense than quality defense. Still, if you have a dominant defense, you will win the championship over a team that has a dominant offense. Again, that was my second rule that I made about this. Dominant defense with a poor offense will beat dominant offense if they have a poor defense. Rule number 1 was, in general, if you have a defensive team, you're going to win more games than you have an offensive team. Defensive teams that are quality defense usually will win 9-10. Offensive teams with an average defense will win 6-7 games. I can't prove that. Speculative. We're up to now, and we got the truck noise in the back. Also, it has that little amidst the tough stadium with the noise and the truck, and we might have even a couple of trucks that come by. But we're up to Super Bowl 26, 27, 28, 29. It'll be 26, 27, 28. 25 was lost by Buffalo, and then Buffalo lost the next 3. I just want to point out, Buffalo, one of the reasons they didn't win any Super Bowls was because of lack of defense. They were a dominant offense. That's Jim Kelly, Hall of Famer, doing the K-gun, red gun, what do they call it? K-gun, I believe. Yeah, K-gun offense. Andre Reed, now in the Hall of Fame. James Lofton was there for a couple of years, a Hall of Fame, but he was towards the end of his career, not his prime. They had, of course, Thurman Thomas, and a well-run offense. Jim Kelly called his plays. He was the guy that would go up to the line, kind of like Peyton Manning, and make the calls and run a really fast offense. Keep it moving, no huddle type. He'd call the plays at the line. Tremendous offense, no Super Bowls. Why'd they lose Super Bowl 25 to a dominant defense, the Giants? Because the Giants ran the ball right down their throat. Unfortunately, Buffalo did not have a very tall, a lot of weight on their defensive line. Wright, a guy named Wright, what was his first name? Wright was only a 280, 290 nose tackle, which even in that time was, the pounds have gone on as the modern era, the weight of the lineman has gotten bigger, but 280, 290 was not that much. He was a quick nose tackle. The Giants plowed through in the running game. Otis Anderson with 125 yards, Meggett with another 30, 40 yards. So Cornelius Bennett, very athletic linebacker. Bruce Smith, great rusher, but again, against the run, they just didn't get it done, even with Shane Collin there, who was good against the run. Giants plowed through. Weak defense, again, dominant defense beats dominant offense. You say, well, it was lost on a 47-yard field goal, 46-yard field goal, 46, 47. That happened to go wide right. And if that field goal by Scott Norwood happens to be good, then you'd be talking how offense beats defense. First of all, they had to get Jim Kelly said we were targeting the 30. That's not true. They couldn't have been targeting the 30. They needed to get at least 5 more yards to make that a plausible make of a field goal. It was a right hash mark. It was on grass. Scott Norwood had never hit that distance, a field goal on grass. So that don't make it sound like they just missed a chip shot there. That's a tough field goal. Again, the kickers nowadays are obviously their range has gotten bigger. For Scott Norwood, that was a tough field goal. And for the day, the Giants were smacking them around. They only put up 17 offensive points, Buffalo. And they got a safety as well to make it 19, lost 20-19. And the Giants controlled the ball for 40 minutes to Buffalo's 20 minutes. They should have ran the ball more, was what they're saying. Marv Levy and the offense and Jim Kelly, they should have ran the ball more. Bill Belichick, this is something Carl Banks has said a few times. I've heard him say a few times that Belichick came into the practice that week and said, we got to give Thurman Thomas 100 yards. And they all went, well, we don't want to do that. That they had to in order to stop they knew Kelly would become impatient as he did. And all the throws over the middle, they were Carl Banks smacked the heck out of it. Andre Reed got smacked many times in that game. Dominant defense beat dominant offense on that day in Florida. Super Bowl 25. Buffalo also lost Super Bowl 28 because of defense. If you remember in that game, that's when there was one drive in the third quarter where Emmitt Smith had the ball just about every time. There was a big turnover by Thurman Thomas in that game, and that was key. Buffalo was actually leading at the half in the year that they were the biggest underdog. I mean, Dallas was a big favorite in that game. That was Dallas's best team in Super Bowl 28. But the Buffalo had the lead at the half. Thurman Thomas fumble. You can rely that something's going to go wrong. After losing 3, I'm sure they had that feeling, what's going to go wrong this time? And indeed, Thurman fumbles. James Washington runs it back for a touchdown. Game changer. Then the big drive where Emmitt Smith just ran over them. And he had 130 yards on the game, Emmitt Smith. 2 times they lost on defense. The other 2 Super Bowls, they didn't lose because of their defense. Interesting. You'll say, hey, it was Washington Redskins won 26. That wasn't a great defense. Yeah, but they had the same level offense as Buffalo and a better defense. And they exposed one of Jim Kelly's weaknesses, that if you hit him and you rush him and you blitz him, you can get to him. The Giants did not blitz. The Giants played a 2-3-6, believe it or not. 2 linemen, 3 linebackers Belichick put out there. He was giving Thurman Thomas the run. They were giving Kelly time, but we're going to smack the receivers. Redskins went with the blitz. Redskins said, hey, we can match him point for point. Let's go out there and try to blitz him. Let's not let Kelly hold the ball. Let's try to blitz him. And they were able to do so. Denver, in the championship game of that season, the year of Super Bowl 26, when the Redskins won 37-23, in the championship game, Denver also tried that, and it worked. They were the first to try to blitz Kelly, and they got to Kelly. Again, a defense holding, a blitzing defense holding Kelly to, I think they won the game, Buffalo, 10-9. It's a game where Elway got hurt, and a guy named Gary Kubiak, maybe you heard of him. Yeah, Super Bowl 50. He'll be coaching Super Bowl 50 in a few days from now. Gary Kubiak came in, couldn't get it done, but they exposed the weakness that there is a defensive style that could stop Kelly, blitzing him, and the Redskins did the same. Caused a lot of turnovers from Jim Kelly. I forgot how many interceptions he threw. So again, don't ask me that as a question. How the Redskins win without a dominant? Redskins, clearly their offense was the key part of their team, but it was their defensive blitz that made the difference between, that was their advantage over Buffalo. They had a better defense than Buffalo. Dallas Cowboys the next year, Super Bowl 27, that's an offensive team. That's Aikman, Smith, Irving, Harper, Novacek. So that's an offensive team. Darryl Johnston, that's an offensive team with and a tremendous Hall of Fame offensive line, right? With Newton and who can't remember these guys? All the Hall of Fame offensive linemen. Larry Allen, I think, was there. Was Allen there at that point? But they have always had it. At that time, they had tremendous offensive line. Yes, it's an offensive team, but again, they had defensive athleticism and could make plays. Leon Lett, Ken Norton Jr., I need Charles Haley. Haley was over from the 49ers, and now he was on Dallas. He was a big playmaker and deserving of the Hall of Fame last year. He was way overdue to be in the Hall of Fame. So they had some players that they had a defense there, and that was, again, their advantage over Buffalo. Dallas, great offense, very good defense. Buffalo, great offense, not so good a defense. And again, Emmitt Smith took advantage of that and ran over them. In that game, also, one of Buffalo's weaknesses was exposed. Again, off the topic of defense wins championships. If you remember, that was the year that Buffalo, in the first half of the Houston Oilers game in the playoffs, were down 30, around 30, including the first play of the second half, which was a pick six by Kelly. Down 30, and then was Reichen by then, but I'm not sure. Down 30, and Frank Reich came in and they won by 37. They were a very inconsistent team. They could be one half Dr. Jekyll, next half Mr. Hyde, and that showed in that Super Bowl where twice the Cowboys scored 2 touchdowns within seconds. So showing that with bursts, that was something that Buffalo was prone to have ups and downs, too many ups and too many nice ups, but too many downs. All right, back to defense wins championships. Let's see what minute we're up to here. $11:20. We got a few minutes left here. We go now to 49ers win 49-26. Clearly a great offense, very good defense. As I've said, the 49ers always had a good defense, but you say that's a good question on me, and I've had a good few questions on me. Why did the Giants win in 86 and 87? 87, 80, 89. One was a strike season. One I told you they lost. Bad game to Flipper Anderson. I forgot that the Jets knocked them out one year on the last day of the season. The lowly Jet, well, it wasn't so lowly, but the Jets knocked them out on a game. So that is a good question. I have to look back there. But for Super Bowl 29, I'm contending that there are years that there were no great dominant defenses. Now help me out. When were the Eagles dominant under Buddy Ryan? Help me out there. I haven't looked up any of this stuff. So it could be that you have a good question. I know that there's no question why the 49ers beat the Chargers. I also would have done a bet like this one guy who put $3 million on the money line to win $300,000. You can get 1/10 your money. I also would have done that. There was no way the Chargers surprised that even were there. Upset the Steelers in the championship game, in a game that Bill Cowher had lost a couple of championship games at home that he should have won. But sorry about the pacing, by the way. I got to pace during this defense wins champions, one of my favorite topics. I don't think there were any dominant defenses at that time. Certainly the Chargers were not a dominant defense. They had Junior Seau, but that's about it. Again, if you want to tell me that the Chargers were a dominant defense, please. I don't believe it. They were a power running game. Natron means that wasn't going to be enough to win with Humphreys. Who was the quarterback? Not Humphreys. Oh, if I can only remember his name, whatever. But that wasn't a Charger team that you could prove to me. Oh, dominant defense. Look, they lost to the 49ers. Please, San Francisco was correctly a 17-point favorite in that game. We go on to now. Again, the Cowboys we'll assume this Cowboys pretty much the same team that they won 27-28. They won 30 over Neil O'Donnell and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll leave that one. That's just a one-year thing. And again, we talked about the Cowboys already. Now let's get to the Denver teams. Denver and Green Bay met, and then Denver beat Atlanta. Now, that Denver team is not a great defense. Their offense was the focal point. As a matter of fact, people were saying that because Elway finally got a running game of Terrell Davis, that's why he finally won a Super Bowl, and it was an offensive team. Again, you want to demonstrate me and show me a great defensive team that was beaten. Green Bay with Favre, obviously the offense was the focal point of that team. So again, two teams that are out. Where are all the defensive teams? Hello, you Mr. Salt producer here. Where, Mr. Salty Peppers, where's your defensive teams? Again, I'm claiming that there were no teams at that time that were dominant, that you could ask me that question. And certainly those two teams didn't have bad defenses. They just didn't have great defenses. So a super offense with a average to good defense, certainly if you're opportunistic and cause turnovers, you can win a Super Bowl, but not if there's a dominant team there. So if I'm missing a few, question me on that. We're at the 15-minute mark. I'm going to do part 4 soon in this SALT production. Defense wins championships.